let's get into a little bit more about you, the parents, because right off the hop, you guys are the ones that are on the front line. You are the ones that are with your children, and even more so now with the pandemic that's going around um, every single day and most of the hours in the day. You're going to be around them. So now is definitely the time to learn, practice, and build those skills that you need for seeing the signs of mental health, building emotional and mental health and strength in your children as well as in yourself. Today, I'm really wanting to look into how can we as parents begin to introduce mindfulness to our children. Now, I do have my notes here, so you'll see me looking down every so often. I have a great memory, but I really don't feel like memorizing 45 minutes worth of content. No one really does. So I'm going to be talking about five steps to take into consideration that every parent should know before starting to introduce their children to mindfulness. So the first thing that we want to discuss is start earlier than later. And I'm talking about in two areas. Yes, with age, that's a given. The earlier you can teach them, the better. But also you want to introduce mindfulness to your children when they are calm. You want to introduce them to the exercises, to the concepts of what's going on, what they're feeling, and all of these things, and having these conversations with your children before they're in the moment where they're frustrated or they're not focusing properly or their imagination, they're bored or whatever it is, where it's evident to you that what they're currently feeling and experiencing is out of their skill level to manage. So the first thing you want to do is start introducing the concepts and the exercises of mindfulness to your children as early as possible, both in age and in and when they're at a calm state of mind where you can have a decent conversation. Think about it very similar to when you're training a puppy or any type of dog. When their energy level is through the roof, let's say they see a cat or something, no matter how much you try to hound them, hold them back, especially if they're not trained and they're just in the beginning stages of being properly trained, there's really nothing you can do to get there. They got tunnel vision. That's all they see is that cat. So when a child is in a state of frustration or anger or excitement, that's the energy, that's the only thing that they're going to be focused on. And you're not going to be able to effectively get through to them the same way that you would if they were in a calm state. So moving on, our second point is practice. Practice is super important. So practice and repetition is incredibly important when beginning to introduce mindfulness to your children. You want to practice on a daily basis, and you want to practice for short periods of time. You don't want anything more than 10 minutes at a time, because really, honestly, we say that children don't have that great of attention span, but yeah, us adults don't have that great of an attention span either. I actually once heard that for however many years you are old is how long you can actually hold your attention on one thing. So if your child is 2 years old, you've got 2 minutes. If your child is 10, you've roughly got about 10 minutes. If your child is 17, you got about 17 minutes. If your child is 40, You get my point. So you want to also practice, like when you're practicing, also keep in mind to do these practice moments when they are calm. So great times that you can do these, I find, is like maybe right before bed, before a meal. Maybe there's a break in between the subjects if you're at home teaching your kids or schooling your kids at home throughout this pandemic. That may be a great time. It's like, you know what, let's take a break. Let's go play a game or whatnot, and then in between that break, you know, say, hey, let's play a game and introduce a new exercise to them. So that is step number 2, or point number 2, is be prepared to practice these things on a daily basis, because it is not a habit yet and it is not familiar. Number 3, answer the questions your kids ask about mindfulness, and they will, especially when you're introducing new exercises. They might have a bunch of questions about it. You might get questions such as, why are we doing this? Or, do I have to do this? And these are great opportunities to take to really expand on why you are teaching your child these mindfulness exercises. And don't, or do your best, not to just say things like, well, because I tell you to, or because it's good for you. Kids are just little adults, and adults are just big kids, and adults like to have a relatively clear explanation to why they're doing something, and so do children. Make sure that when you're explaining it to your child, though, that you're explaining it at a level that they can understand, and that they can see the value and what they can get out of it. Kids want to know, what's in it for me? How will this help me? And why should I even be doing this? Funny, that's exactly how adults are too. What's in it for me? But it's true. Kids want to understand why. And when a child does understand why, they're much more, and can understand how it benefits them in a positive way, they are much more likely to listen and participate in learning that exercise. Number 4, be patient with the progress. Be patient with the progress. Everything takes time. And when you first introduce mindfulness to your children, when you first start with the different exercises, it's going to be very unfamiliar to a child, and it may even feel a bit awkward. And when we feel uncomfortable and things are unfamiliar, we can tend to not want to do it as much, you know, and that's why, you know, step number, or point number 2, is there, the practice. Because the more you practice, the more things become easier, the more they become familiar. And the more things become familiar, the more we are likely to revert back to doing those things, because it's something we're familiar with. It's becoming a habit. Also, make sure that when you get into introducing mindfulness to your kids, that you come in with an expectation that is realistic for your children, okay? Please don't expect your kid to do one exercise and be like, I love this, I'm gonna do this every single time I'm frustrated. That's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. You need to allow it to become familiar. You need to allow it to become a habit, You need to allow it to become second nature to them. It's a skill that they are developing. And so are you. All right. Number 5. Now, I believe that this is one of the most important points when it comes to introducing things to children. And actually, this point is really, really important when you're just communicating with your children all around and with everyone. And that point is, do not take it personally. Do not take it personally. The first few times that you attempt to use an exercise to help calm a child down when they are having a temper tantrum, or they are freaking out, or they're having a breakdown, they may not accept that exercise in that moment. In fact, they may be like just really, really against it. Like, I don't want to do this exercise. I don't want to breathe. There, fine, ha, good enough. So they they may not accept these exercises in the heat of the moment as well as they would when they're calm. And especially at the beginning, when they are not familiar with how this exercise is actually going to help to calm them down and help them to manage that energy and that feeling that is flowing through their body. So you don't want to take it personally. Don't worry. Please don't worry. The more you practice, the more familiar it would become, and the more it's going to become second nature to your child. And the more in the heat moments that you implement and really use those exercises, the less and less you will see those type of outbreaks towards the exercises, these mindfulness exercises. Please don't get frustrated. Like everything, practice, practice, practice makes easy, makes familiar, and creates that habit. We are, when we're teaching our children all of these exercises, it is to build that skill for your child for when they don't have you around, to go and remind them about using these particular exercises. So please do your best to not get frustrated and realize that this is part of the process. This is part of the progress. And do not take it personally. I cannot stress this enough. Please, please do not take it personally. Your kids, you are not a failure. You have not failed. You are not doing anything wrong. So just understand that there is a process, there is a progress, and it's not always going to go smoothly. Remember that, especially in the heat of the moment, your kids are not attacking you. They are not trying to hurt you, not intentionally. They're not trying to be mean to you. And they're definitely not trying to be disrespectful. In the heat of the moment, what they are experiencing is super unfamiliar, and they are just unfamiliar and unskilled in how to manage what they are experiencing and feeling. And us adults, we do the same thing. I can give you a whole bunch of examples. I can give you, even I have my kids that come in every so often. Okay, so just understand that they are they are learning how to manage what they are feeling in their bodies, especially in the heat of the moment. That is their moment of practice. That is their greatest moment of practice, because that's where they're at on the front line. So don't take it personally if they lash out towards you. Now, I'm not saying allow it, but don't react to it. You want to use that moment after they have calmed down to have a conversation with them about the importance of expressing themselves to another individual in a respectful way, where it's not going to be harmful for both themselves and for you. So do not take it personally. Let's see, where is I? Gotta find my spot. Kind of got a little bit off course when my kids came in. Oh, so yeah, so that is the five steps. So just to reiterate, one, start as early as possible, both in age and in at a calm state. Practice, 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 practice is step number 2. Practice, practice, practice. And keep the practices to being very short, intervals no more than 10 minutes, and every single day. Number 3, answer those questions that those kids are going to ask you, and answer them as thoroughly to their age appropriately as you possibly can. Do your best to stay away from saying things like, because I said so. Number 4, be patient with the progress. And number 5, don't take it personally.